black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com.
Talked about aliens, I swear, as many people as I've talked to, at least 5% have got to be from another world. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Are you talking about people or?
Yeah, it's people.
Oh,
yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, there are probably some watching right now. I've talked to so many of them.
Literally,
a lot of really far out there stuff. You know, where a lot of people don't get what it is that we do. You know, we don't go look for Bigfoot. We don't. You know, I try to maintain the naturalistic aspect of Sasquatch as long as I can until it just can't be explained any other way. Then I'll go the paranormal route. And we've done that before. But you know, it's just a lot of people. I get a lot of calls for people telling us that we need to come to this place. And there's this one guy, I'll probably get a phone call from him, but he's constantly in contact with Sasquatch, and their orbs, and they're coming inside him and out of him. They're going into trees. It's like all the time. They're just talking to him all the time. And he used to call me a lot, and he kind of quit because I just told him that there was nothing.
You check it out?
No, I mean, I'm not. No, somebody else can go do it. Fine.
Why not?
Because I think he's crazy. That's why.
But if you don't know, it's easy to sit back. I mean, if I didn't believe in Bigfoot and I heard your Bigfoot story, I'd go, Kerry's crazy.
Okay.
So why not take an opportunity and go see if he's crazy? If you're really looking, I'll tell you the same thing Dr. Bennernagel told me. You're disingenuous. You're not looking for honest answers. You're trying to fit Sasquatch into your box to what you think it is. And that's the wrong thing to do. What you need to do is hear everyone out. If you think he's nuts, why not go find out if he's full of it or not?
Because I'm not rich, man, and my time is valuable. And this is like traveling to Ohio to find out that I was right all along.
I'm not trying to break your balls. What I'm saying, though, is the doc really changed my opinion on that because, you know, he said, you're disingenuous, Wes. You're not looking for honest answers. If you're unwilling to hear someone out because you think they're nuts, you're not looking for honest answers. You're looking for, and I'm not breaking your balls, Kerry. I'm saying this is what he said to me. And it made sense to me when he said that. I was like, you know what? He's right. Because if I'm looking for what I think Sasquatch is, I'm really not looking for anything. I have my answers and I already know what it is. And I'll create my narrative based on that. And he was right. It's the wrong thing to do. You know, there's a lot of people where I've heard a lot of odd things and I thought that person's nuts. And then a week later, I hear from someone else. They never heard that conversation. And they're telling me the exact same thing. And I'm like, okay, he's nuts. And then you hear it again and again. and again, and eventually you get to the point to where you're like, I don't know what to think. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not as crazy as I thought it was. It sounds crazy, but when you hear it over and over and over again, it makes you stop and go, I don't know anything. And that's how I got kicked off the Bigfoot Odyssey. I'm just joking. If you get a chance, check out Bigfoot Odyssey on YouTube. Kerry Arnold runs it. He was kind enough to have myself and Tony Merkel on the show. And I asked Kerry, I said, hey, Kerry, would you mind coming back on my show? And I'd love to hear about your Bigfoot Odyssey since your encounter, how things have changed, if any of your theories have changed. So Kerry was kind enough to come back on the show. So we'll be talking to him tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Kerry Arnold from the Bigfoot Odyssey. Kerry, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Wes.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, and I know you got a cool YouTube channel, Bigfoot Odyssey. I was actually on there the other night for the Halloween special, and I had a lot of fun. So if the listeners are out there, Kerry does a lot of cool things. He'll do like the researcher's report. He'll do little mini movies, documentaries on his channel. If you get a chance, check it out with the Bigfoot Odyssey. I've actually had Kerry on the show. I was just telling Kerry, you know, I don't remember. I want to say your encounter was 2007 in Mississippi. I could be wrong.
That's right.
Would you mind for the listeners? It's episode 444. Would you mind kind of retelling that encounter?
No, not at all. Actually, you know, when I told the first time, I had just come off nights. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning for me. I had to have been first thing in the morning for you. And I had like no sleep, and I was terribly frazzled, and I think I left a lot of stuff out that was kind of important. So let's see if I can't cover these things here.
Yeah, I hear you. And if you would just kind of start from the beginning. I mean, I think you were out hunting, weren't you?
I was. You know, I had leased this property from an old man. Actually, a friend of mine I worked with was telling me about this property his grandfather owned. It was 240 acres. It was 30 minutes up the road. Nobody hunted it. Nobody had been hunting it for many, many years. And so I had him hook me up with his grandfather, and you know, we had a deal. Of course, he didn't want anything. He didn't care. He said, go out there and make it your own. I offered him half of everything I took out of there. So that was our deal for the better part of 7 years. And I had, you know, a lot of strange things happen to me out there, but I just always attributed it to being something else, you know, and once this happened, you know, it was pretty evident that these things were a lot more easily explained. What I had done for the better part of 7 years was pretty much cleared the place. You know, I cut shooting lanes, I put in shooting houses, I had food plots. And it was December of 2006. I'd already been in there for the better part of 7 years. And I was getting some good bucks on camera. And they were coming in like 30 minutes after dark. So I decided that I would go where I thought they were bedding up. I would go off into the back, into the bottoms, and try to catch them coming to the feeding area while it was still daylight. So while I'm down there, it gets dark, and then all of a sudden, right next to me, a whole flock of turkeys just get up to roost. I mean, scared the mess out of me. And well, you know, light bulb. Now I know where the turkeys are. Let's try turkey hunting. I had tried turkey hunting when I first started out there, but I wasn't successful. And it was up toward the front. So I never did it again. So now I know where the turkeys are. Now when turkey season comes around, or turkey season for me anyway, I can try turkey hunting. So that's what I did. And for a couple of months, I prepared this area. I guess about a week before I planned to hunt, I found this little area and I burned it off. It's probably half the size of a football field. And if you're looking at this area like it's a football field, east to west would be end zones. north and south would be the sidelines. Well, the south sideline dropped straight off down into a creek bed. It's like a 2-tiered drop off. And then to the southeast corner, it just kind of gradually, faded off back down into a lot deeper hollow down there. Just kind of wrapped all the way around this little area. I'm up on the hill, a lot of hardwoods in the bottoms and deciduous trees and pines up on the ridges. Well, this area was clear. Maybe had 1 or 2 small trees in it, but it was perfect little turkey hunting spot. So I get set up there. Was March the 10th, 2007. It was my father-in-law's birthday. So I remembered the date so well. And I'd gotten out there probably just before daylight. And, going into this area, the house, the property is behind the house. There's actually a row of houses on the road. And there's a road that runs down beside the property. Well, I would go down that road and then cut into the leash road that went in. So you go in, it cuts a sharp left, and it's just an old logging road is what it was. It wasn't very good. And I would either drive my four-wheeler down halfway, or depending on what I was doing, or I would park in the front. Well, on this particular day, I parked in the front, and I walked all the way back there. It was 800 yards, half a mile. We measured it. So I get back there, and I've got gallberry bushes set up where I'm going to hunt in the northwest corner, where I can look out straight across to the southeast corner of the end zone there, see all the south sideline, and I'm looking down the north sideline to the east. So I get my bushes set up. I'm all camoed out. I've got a mesh over my face. I've got black under my eyes, a recondo hat. So, turkeys are not very smart, but if they see you, it's over. Don't blink. So you have to hide. And I sit down there and I start calling. And I probably called for the better part of 2 hours. And I had a reed in my mouth, a chirp, I had a box call, and I had a locator. This locator, you shake it, and it sounds like a turkey gobbling. But it sounds like a young turkey. Young turkeys, or jakes, they call them. When they gobble, they don't finish it. They just kind of halfway do it. And when I finally, after 2 hours, started getting some reaction, that's what I was hearing back were young turkeys. So I'm getting kind of excited. I'm trying to sound like, the sexiest hen in the woods to get them to come in. And I think they had already been in that area. I think once you burn an area off, they like to go in and, for whatever reason, pick the little shoots and seeds and new growth or whatever, dead bugs, who knows. But it usually works. So I'm calling, and when I get to actually see turkeys, there's a wide game trail right down the north sideline, about 4 feet off to the left, a very wide, very used game trail. And I can see turkeys coming up the game trail. They're coming all through the woods. It's a bunch. I can't tell exactly how many it is at this point, but it's a lot. But I can't see any big gobblers. I don't notice any anyway. So I'm getting excited. I'm sitting there and calling them in, and it's 72 feet from where I am to the edge of that little clearing. I know because I stepped it off, so I know how far my shot was going to be. Well, they get about 40 feet before coming into the clearing, and what it looks like, they perk up, some of the ones in the front, and then gone. They all just explode out of there to the north, to my left. And I'm obviously aggravated, upset, and thinking there's no way they saw me. Just about the time that I couldn't hear them anymore, because it's pretty loud, turkey wings, I could hear what sounded like somebody or, footsteps straight out across from me down in the creek bottom. So I stood up to try to see who it was. I didn't see anybody. And, it dawned on me that, the turkeys had a direct line of sight to whoever that is. So whatever down there is what scared the turkeys off. It wasn't me. So I'm kind of aggravated, upset, and I'm looking to see. And when I can see who it is, it's a black guy. I can see just about from the top of shoulders up. It's through the thicket, and he's down in that that first tier of that bottom, walking from west to east along the south sideline. Well, it's a black guy, makes perfect sense because of where I was. The property belonged to, a black family. And that's all that lived around there were African-American folks. It's one of them. So I'm watching, and he would come up close to that edge and look. He'd snap his head at me and look. And then he'd look back where he's going. Snap his head at me and look back where he's going. So I waved my hand at him. I'm right here. Don't shoot me. I won't shoot you. Not dawning on me or realizing how he knew where I was. So there's this big pine tree right behind me. And I plop my back against it. I put my foot up on it, and I've got a Benelli 3.5-inch 12-gauge automatic. It's all black, all synthetic, and I've got the plug in it. So I've got 3 shots, high brass number 4, turkey shot. And I'm holding it down. I've got my back against the tree, my right foot up on it, guns down to my left, hand around the grip, and my right hand is up over the stock like a boat paddle. A non-aggressive, I won't shoot at you position. And I can't see him very much anymore, but I can still hear him. It's like he's tired. That's what the impression that I got is that he was really tired of lumbering. That's why he wasn't coming on up, I guess. And then he had to have walked away from me at some point. I didn't see it, but the next time I could really see him, he's coming straight up at me. So he goes down that east point and around up to the southeast corner of the end zone. And it's a pretty shallow grade, and I'm watching him, and he doesn't look quite right. I mean, it didn't register with me that this is anything other than a guy. And when I could see most of his body, it looked like he was wearing camouflage, like maybe a camouflage vest over some coveralls. And I don't remember it being that cold. I don't think it was that cold, but this is an amateur as far as I'm concerned. He's scared my turkeys off, and I'm thinking of what I'm going to say to this guy. And now he's wearing camouflage. He's hunting. So now I'm really upset. So I'm kind of halfway paying attention to him. He's lumbering his way up, and there's 2 small pine trees, 10-inch pine trees, maybe about 3 or 4 feet apart, about 8 feet down that grade from the edge of the clearing, right there in the corner. And he probably gets maybe 8 or 10 feet away from it, and I'm watching, and I see him reach his arm out to grab it. Well, I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but what I saw was the skin on the inside of his arm, the dark gray skin, and the hair hanging down, and longer hair coming off of his hand. So he reaches out to grab this tree, and he grabs that tree and he pulls himself right up to it, just pulls it right into his shoulder. His hand is on the back side of it. I remember that because I couldn't see his fingers. And I think those were the moments that I began to realize that this was not a person, that this was something. And when he opened his mouth and began making this noise, it was the most unnerving thing I ever heard in my life. I'm still standing there in this position, and he starts. It's like he's talking to me, but it's a deep growl. Kind of a Native American even, but it's slow. It's almost like he's talking to me, but he's doing it slowly where I'll understand. Like people that talk to someone else that doesn't speak their language, and they talk to them really slow, like, do you know where the bathroom? That's kind of how it felt looking back on it, because it wasn't really fast talk. It was really, slow and deep, and like multiple sets of vocal cords. Well, as soon as he started doing that, I knew exactly what it was. This is a Sasquatch. This is what everyone has been seeing and calling a Sasquatch. And in that moment, I could feel the blood rush from my face. It was like somebody poured a bucket of cold water over my head. And all within just a couple of seconds, what I thought was camouflage was mud, what looked like mud. But it was all mostly on one side. That's why it wasn't on his arms or his face or anything. It was mostly on one side of his body, and there was leaves and sticks and twigs. And I mean, his hair was all matted up. I mean, he was a mess. But that's what it looked like, was mud. I want to say that's exactly what it was, but it could have been something else. That's why I thought he was wearing camouflage.
Yeah.
So within those few seconds of that happening, and I'm completely mortified, I guess I got the nerve. I wanted to get my hand down off the butt and get it on the grip. So I started to move my hand down because from what I can gather, the way he's acting, he wants to hurt me. You know, he's not happy with whatever I had not crossed the line somehow.
And before you go on, Kerry, what made you feel that way? What was he doing to make you feel that way?
Well, it's the way he was talking. He would get really loud, and then he would bring it down and mumble, you know, and then just
I gotcha.
Breathy, growling. No way a man can make these noises, even though there were a few moments in there where I was kind of back and forth. You know, is this a guy? You know, how is he doing this? Because there's such a level of disbelief in it. I guess that's why. But, you know, once he really opened his mouth and I got to watching him for a couple seconds, you know, there was no doubt. I mean, I could see from just about his waist up, he's standing in a gap, holding on to this tree. And there's sage grass in front of him. I can see his part of his left hand hanging down. I can only see the tip of his fingers. The hair was really long on his arms. And his forearm was massive, way bigger than his bicep. It was just, and it was very muscular. It just looked like it was just stuck on there. So at this point, I'm going to reach my hand down and just to get it on there. And when he saw me doing that, he didn't like it. He started rocking back and forth. I mean, really fast. He probably rocked 2 or 3 times, and then he blew at me. And when I say he blew at me, it wasn't like he yelled at me. It was like a huff. But it was like he was telling me no, you know. Just about the time I think I got my hand on the grip is when it hit me, and it was, you know, like, no, you know, you're not going to do that. You're not going to, you know, put your hand on that gun. Well, when it hit me, I felt it. It was like a wave, like standing in front of a big speaker. And there's this demonic tone coming out of this thing. So I think that was enough to move me. And I took about 3 or 4 steps off into the clearing where I could still see him. And I got ready. You know, I'm my hands on the gun. I'm off safety. I still didn't point my gun at him. I think if I would have pointed my gun at him, he could have took 1 step in either direction and just been completely gone. So I did that. And now I'm out from under the limbs of the tree that I'm leaning up against. And I can see the top of the tree that he's holding on to. And it's whipping. I mean, he's shaking. He's not shaking it. He's just rocking back and forth and still holding on to it. And I mean, me and you and 4 people couldn't have done what he was doing to that tree. And that really scared me. You know, that was seeing, I guess, how much power this thing had is what really terrified me. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to fight this thing all the way out of here. You know, how am I going to do this? I got three shots of high brass number 4 turkey shot, which is nothing really to sneeze at. You know, I think I probably could have killed him if he had got close enough, but I was afraid that I was going to have to do that. And that I was just going to have to shoot him 3 times real quick and reload while I'm running, you know. Well, he stops rocking and he stuck his tongue out. He stuck his tongue straight out, just like a point. Rolled his lips back. I could see all of his white teeth, long canines on the top and the bottom. Not really long, but longer than his other teeth. And a gap in his 2 front teeth, like Michael Strahan gap. Really white teeth, in contrast to his face anyway. So I think he was young because his teeth were very white and his face was very black. His face was darker than the rest of his skin underneath, and I could see his skin underneath his hair. So he sticks his tongue out. It wasn't at me. It was just like he was tasting the air or whatever. So he quit doing that, and he mumble growled a couple more times. He stopped. He turned his body to the right and cocked his head, just like a dog. You whistle at a dog and they kind of cock their head to the side. And he looked right down his nose, across his shoulder, never took his eyes off me. And he just took a couple of steps toward that game trail, kind of quartered away, and then turned and walked dead away from me through the thickest stuff out there. He could have walked clear down that game trail, but I think he walked away in the thick stuff. I guess I couldn't shoot him in the back or whatever, but I could still hear him walking away very intently. There was no sneaking off. And, you know, bushes move, and I'm looking, I'm trying to watch, and I see a little something move, and then he gets far enough away where all I can do is hear him. Well, he probably gets at least down into the bottom, which is probably 60 or 70 feet, you know, from where he was. And that's when he yelled. And when he yelled, I'm still standing there. It wasn't like, you know, the long Finding Bigfoot, you know, oh, it wasn't anything like that. I describe it like it's a whip. It sounded like a baboon. That like build up and so loud. It was just wow. I mean, except it wasn't exactly like that. It was more like wow, you know, like abrupt quit at the end. And it was so loud you could have heard, you know, a mouse fart after that in the woods. Because I do remember the wind was blowing just a little bit. And I still stood there. And that was the last thing I heard was that. I didn't hear him walking away anymore. And that was it. But I guess I didn't want to turn around. I still didn't want to turn my back to him because I had to get out of there the other way. And I'm looking to my left. You know, throughout this whole thing, I'm glancing to my left. Something's telling me, look to your left because there's still some thick stuff right there. Maybe just probably my own weird intuition or whatever. But I mean, there was nothing there that I know of. Something just told me to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Well, after standing there for at least a minute, a long time, I can start to feel myself breathing. You know, not that I wasn't breathing already. I wasn't noticing it. Now I can feel, and I'm not really breathing fast, taking long, deep breaths, and my heart's pounding out of my chest. I'm cold, and I turn around. I grabbed my backpack. I still have that backpack. And I left everything else laying there. The chair, the calls, everything. And I started out, but I didn't want to run. And I stopped for a second and thought I'll take the plug out and put 2 more in it. But I didn't want to get caught in that position. So I took 3 out of my pocket. I had a pocket full of shells. So I took 3 out of my pocket and put them in my left hand and walked out that way. But I would take short, quick steps the whole way out. I don't remember a lot of the walk out except for this one spot. I remember this one spot and it being, I got creeped out there all the time. And it was kind of clear. Water flowed through it. And when I would come in and walk that way, you could see for 100 yards through there because there wasn't any undergrowth. You know, the water flowed through there. It's like a branch, like a dry branch. And I always got creeped out there. Fog would settle in it. It was always quiet, you know, especially early in the morning. And if I ever got creeped out, it was there. So, and I'm thinking on the way out, because this is pretty close. It's about maybe 300 yards from where my 4-wheeler is by the road. And the whole way I'm thinking, this is where he's going to be. You know, he's tracking me all the way around because I would walk. I remember taking quick steps and stopping, and I would listen just to see if I heard footsteps, taking any extra footsteps, but I never did. And I got to this place, and I tried to get through as quick as I can. Nothing was there. Nothing happened. But the road turned to the right, up a hill, and up there was where my 4-wheeler is. Well, when I got to the crest of that hill, and I could see my 4-wheeler, it's 200 feet away. It's starting to open up. I'm feeling really good about making it out. I stopped and I turned around. And I mean, as soon as I turned around, I heard a very distinctive tree break or a tree limb, but it was fresh because it was that crackle pop, you know, that pow, like a rifle shot. And that's when I ran. I ran and got on my 4-wheeler And I think that was probably one of the most terrifying moments. Was the way I had parked, I couldn't go forward. I had to back up to get out of there. And I was going to have to back toward this tree break I just heard. So I knew he wasn't that far away if it was him. In my mind, it was. And so I backed out and I drove up to the house where I would usually load my four-wheeler. I just pushed it up to the side of the house. It was probably still rolling when I got off of it. I had an 05 Avalanche and hit the key fob, got in, grabbed my 7 mag out of the back, made sure it was loaded. And I sat there probably, 20 minutes maybe, watching that back tree line and thinking of all this stuff that had happened to me over these years. These crazy, weird things that I attributed to something else just started pouring back on me. And it was traumatic.
Yeah.
The whole thing was traumatic. It bothered me for a long time after.
It is traumatic, and it's a fascinating account. I appreciate you telling it. And when you started telling it, I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember this encounter." A couple things I want to ask you. Prior to this, what did you think about Bigfoot?
I don't really remember. I don't think I didn't really believe. I thought maybe it was possible. I mean, I'd seen In Search Of, I'd seen Patterson-Gimlin. It was just never a thought. It was never anything I was going to have to worry about. That was a Pacific Northwest issue. Or a mountains issue. I'd never heard of sightings anywhere else. And anytime you heard or saw of an expedition, it was always British Columbia, Pacific Northwest, Rocky Mountains, whatever. So it wasn't a concern. No, it wasn't even remotely a concern. I think if it would have been, I would have recognized what it was before I did. I mean, I think if I'd have been anywhere else than where I was on these people's property, because my frame of reference is this is a black guy. And I think that's what kind of threw me off a little bit at the beginning, because I think if I'd have been anywhere else, I probably would have recognized what it was, because it didn't look right, but I'm thinking this is an amateur and he's out here trying to hunt because he's wearing camouflage, and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. It was a very inharmonious range of emotions, really, in a short period of time, from being excited about turkeys to being pissed off at this guy to being terrified. And then, of course, I never went back in the woods again. I didn't go back for 10 years. I didn't go back to that place for 11 years. And that was just to film my encounter, what happened.
Do you think that the creature didn't realize you were there and you guys just kind of stumbled upon each other? Obviously, he stumbled in, but I mean, do you think he even knew you were there until...
Yeah, I think he knew. I think they knew me. They watched me because he wasn't the only one. If it was a male, pretty sure it was. They watched me for 7 years. They knew who I was, and I was the only one out there. And I was out there so much. I'd had a lot of things happen to me around 1999 that just pushed me off. I just didn't want to be around people. I'd lost a lot of people really close to me in a short period of time, and so I feeling sorry for myself, whatever. But I got so used to being out there all the time, camping in the summertime. And I mean, I would camp for 4 days at a time by myself. And I think back on those things, and it creeps me out to this day. And a lot of things, a lot of weird things that I would experience out there.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. When you say that, I heard you say that a couple times. What kind of weird things are you talking about?
Okay. There was one place where I could go in the front, and I would take a Primo's can call. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. It's a little round can. You turn it over, and it sounds like a doe bleat. Bet, bet, one of those. Well, I had this one tree I would get in to call in, does, bucks, whatever would come to it. And I mean, just almost immediately, I'd hit that can, and I would hear what sounded like a truck coming through the woods. I mean, limbs popping, bushes shaking, it's coming. And then it's coming towards me and get right up to there. There's a thicket right there about 40 yards away maybe. It would get to right there and stop every time. And I'm thinking, this is a huge buck, and I can't outsmart him. He's winding me, and this doe or whatever is not coming to him, so he's getting pissed off. When realistically, that's just not what bucks do. Bucks don't break limbs. You know, they might get upset and hook on something, but you can tell it's them, and they'll whistle and all this other stuff. That wasn't what this was, but I was convincing myself that's what it was. I think they were trying to run me out then. And I don't think they were trying. I don't think when I knew he wanted me out of there. And I think it had something to do with the turkeys. I'm not positive he wanted me out permanently, but that was the results of what happened. But that's one thing. And it happened to me so much, well over a dozen times that happened, that I quit doing it, because I knew one of the last few times I did it and I heard that, I was like, well, I'm not going to get to see what it is anyway. And I think I might have tried to sneak up on it a couple of times, but it was just so thick in there. There was no getting to it. So I abandoned that one. Another time, late in the afternoon, it was early in the season. It was probably 3:00 in the afternoon. I got in the shooting house early, and it was a long grade, 200 yards down to the creek bottom, and then about another 700 yards up to the right is the house. I'm sitting in the shooting house, and I hear what sounds like kids playing or screaming at each other. Well, you know, I can't shoot that way now. So I get out. I walk down there to tell them to get back up to the house. And I get down there. There's nobody there. There's not even kids playing up at the house now. And finding out later that there were no real young kids around there. There was a 12-year-old girl and some teenagers that lived in that area at that time.
Yeah, bizarre. You hear a lot of people I've had many people come forward and they say, well, I heard kids playing, or I heard kids yelling, or, but a lot of times if you listen to those people and they're describing that to you, they're generally in areas where there's no way there's kids out there playing. I mean, I had a guy here in Oregon that was telling me a very similar encounter to where he was hearing kids. He was out logging, and I know exactly where he was at. He was in the middle of nowhere, and there's no kids up there. I know that for a fact. There's no kids up there. Bizarre, man. So what made you start the Bigfoot Odyssey? And for the audience, again, go to YouTube, type in Bigfoot Odyssey, subscribe, like. Kerry definitely puts up some cool stuff. But Kerry, what made you start that?
The best way I can describe it is, once this happened to me and I left, I left everything. I sold my four-wheeler. I sold all my guns, except I kept my dad's gun. And I just suppressed it. I put it down. I wasn't going to tell anybody. I had to change everything. My whole life is changing. Well, the analogy that I use is, it's like trying to you cup your hand and you put it over the water, and you're trying to hold this air bubble down under the water. Okay, but it's a human hand. It's not a cup. So this bubbles start to escape. So I think after 4 or 5 years of holding this in, this truth that I knew is trying to get out a little bit at a time. I would have nightmares. I could be driving down the road and just look over into the woods and get this washed over feeling, and I have to pull over. You know, that same terrified feeling, like my body was reacting to it like it was happening again. Wake up screaming, you know, have the same recurring dream about it was never my encounter, but it was the same dream that Bigfoot was after me, was going to get me. And so my wife said, you need to do something with it. I was an armchair researcher for 10 years at that point. And I found everything I could possibly find online. So I found, guys down in South Florida, and I went out with them, and I wasn't comfortable. It just wasn't for me. I even tried again. After I left them, I tried by myself, and researching wasn't for me. So she suggested that we talk to people. Let's do encounters. I'm like, well, Sasquatch Chronicles has that already. She's like, well, we can get them on video. We'll video encounter. I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to travel to these people's places. I'm not just going to tell their encounter. We're going to have to find people that have a whole story to tell. That's why we call it Bigfoot Odyssey. It's not because we travel, it's like Homer's Odyssey. It's their Odyssey. It's this person's journey through Bigfoot, from indifferent or non-believer to waist deep in it, you know, and everything that happened in between. That's the story we try to tell. And it kind of, we have a particular format for it. It's we kind of go back and forth from the table to the field, from the interview to the field, and it works for us pretty good, I guess. Most people seem to enjoy it. But that's what it's turned into anyway. And then of course we started doing the researchers' reports because there was so much time in between documentaries. You know, I'm editing our 12th one right now, Sisters of the Moon. And I think when I talked to you the first time, we had just done our first one. So, yeah.
You've definitely come a long way, and you can tell you can tell even in the documentary. It's kind of like my podcast. If you listen to the first, 90 episodes, it's pretty rough. And then after that, you kind of hit your stride as far as you know how to do things, you know how the show should sound, you know what questions you should ask, and so you definitely get a stride with it. And one thing I want to address the other night, Tony Merkel gave me crap about it. So Kerry had, and again, check out Bigfoot Odyssey on YouTube. Definitely subscribe to it. Is that your phone, Kerry? How unprofessional. I'm just joking.
Yeah, it is. I turned it down, but I didn't turn it off. So Messenger went off. Yeah, okay, it's off now.
I'm notorious for doing that. But no, if you get a chance, check it out. Bigfoot Odyssey on YouTube. Definitely subscribe, like, and check out what Kerry puts up. He puts out a lot of content, and a lot of really good content. And Tony Merkel and myself were on the other night, so if you get a chance, check it out. It was for his Halloween special. And you know, one of the things I was trying to tell you, Kerry, and I think it came across wrong, so I'll apologize to you publicly. I've already apologized to you privately. But, you know, one of the things I was trying to tell you was, you know, Dr. Bennernagel, the doc, as I like to call him, he had a huge influence on me. And when the doc spoke, you listened. And he rode me on a lot of different things. He gave me a hard time about a lot of different things. And sometimes when I hear people say certain things, I hear them fall into what I call the researcher category, which between you and I is the scum of the earth. Most Bigfoot researchers are the worst human beings you've ever met. Not all of them. I won't say all of them, but most of them.
Not all of them.
Obviously not all of them. Like you mentioned, Sisters of the Moon, Debbie Jones. I think
it's the experts.
Exactly. It's the arrogant experts that come across, and even some who say, "Oh, I'm not an expert," and then they'll spend the next 20 minutes telling you how much of an expert they are. And so you fall into this category. And when I heard yourself talking, I heard myself talking, and then when I was responding, I was hearing the doc respond to me. There's a lot of times where I would say someone's nuts. You know, I would say, "Oh, that's crazy," you know, that, and he would say, and he had a funny way of, I can't think of one time I walked away from one of our conversations where I was really upset with him. I was put in check, don't get me wrong. I was definitely put in check, but I can't think of a time where I ever walked away and felt disrespected from him. And maybe it's because I respected him so much, but a lot of times he would say, you know, I would say, "Oh, that's crazy, the doc, John, that, you know, they're nuts." And he would always say, "Oh, you know what Bigfoot is then? Well, enlighten me. Explain to me what Bigfoot is then." And then, you know, he would do those certain things to where you really couldn't debate him. And if you did, you were an idiot. You know, I mean, he was probably one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. And he'd be the last guy you'd want to get into a debate with, because he would take you apart in 2 seconds. But he would do it in a way to where he wouldn't embarrass you or make you, like I said, he would come up and say, "Oh, well, you obviously have it figured out. Why don't you enlighten me and tell me what Sasquatch is then?" And I would have nothing to say. You know, I mean, I'd be just standing there being like, And he, you know, Tony gave me a hard time about it. And I was like, "I like Kerry. What do you mean?" I didn't think I was giving him a hard time at all. And he was like, "I was like,
no,
I like
it was
Kerry."
fine.
But
I got it. I wasn't offended.
And I'm glad to hear that. My point was, the point I was trying to make is what he used to always make with me was, no matter how crazy something is, look into it. see if there's something to it. And he used to always tell me too, if you're uncomfortable with it, put that aside and just go look into it. And you might walk away and go, yeah, that guy's nuts, or that lady's nuts, or but he always stressed to me to always look into things, especially if you have multiple witnesses telling you something, even if it sounds bananas, go look into it and just see what, and then at least then you can walk away and go, here's why, this person's not, or here's why none of this makes sense. Here's why I think I feel the way I do. And he was right. He really changed my opinion on a lot of things. And most people think the question I ask people, what do you think Sasquatch is, comes from me. It doesn't come from me. It actually is something that John used to do with me when I would argue with him about when I thought someone was crazy. He would always go, well, what do you think Sasquatch is in West? Well, why don't you enlighten me and tell me since what do you think Sasquatch is? Explain to me why this is crazy. And immediately I had to shut up. Immediately, you know what I mean?
No, I get that. I do. I understand that. But, for me, and I guess what I didn't convey properly was with what we do, I've got a particular vetting process. And the guy that I was talking about, I would put in that expert category. Now, I've talked to a lot of people that make the claim to have intimate knowledge of Sasquatch. And what I've learned, for the most part, sitting down or being on the phone with people, is that I always get one of two conversations. I'm either going to get the person or I'm going to get their ideology. Now, I'm trying to talk to the person because that's where the story is. But they tend to get sideswiped, the expert does, by the ideology, given that I'm making my presumptions clear. But it's like, this button gets pressed and the belief starts to come out. It's almost like they're trying to guide your perception and informing the idea in that instance, instead of just being a person that had an experience and laying it out there for you to dissect.
It's like joining a religion. They want you to, yeah, I get it.
Exactly. Now, for me, as far as the expert goes, there's this belief, or there seems to be this presupposition that to be taken seriously or to have credibility, you must have this intimate knowledge of something that we all desperately want to know about, but in my mind haven't really figured out yet, or at least we haven't found the easy way or made the hard sacrifice to get. These people want you to accept that they've done this, but they don't give you the tour. They don't give you the Odyssey, if you will, that's necessary to have this knowledge. They want to be this valid representative of the Bigfoot community, but all they do is cite their credentials and how much time they invested in it. But when it comes to the details of how they know that Bigfoot doesn't eat meat or only hunts at night or migrates in the winter solstice during the full moon when the bells ring, that they leave all that stuff out. And this was one of those guys, That's kind of what I was. I probably should have made a little bit.
And I hear you on it. I just think that it's too bad the Bigfoot world is so crazy. You know what I mean? That you deal with so many nuts. And what cracks me up, and we can talk about other things because I'm sure the audience doesn't care about this, but in the Bigfoot world, it's always the Bigfoot researchers crying and moaning about like, oh, science won't take us seriously and blah, blah, blah. They don't realize they're the cancer in the Bigfoot world. The Bigfoot researchers are 110% the cancers in the Bigfoot world. They're ruining it for everyone else. It's a smug, arrogant attitude, and it's easy to fall into that. I almost became a Bigfoot researcher, and it's this very smug, arrogant attitude of like, I know everything, and it's an ape, or and the other side's just as bad. The woo side's just as bad. It's always some religious leader that they're following, or some, Zorth is going to teach us a new thing about our lifestyle, and it's all nonsense. It's all 110% nonsense. But between the two camps, you'll find the truth somewhere in the middle. And that was John's point with me with regard to even some of the weird paranormal stuff that goes on. He was saying, hey, look into it. There's nothing wrong with looking into it. What do you have to lose? And it's, going back to researchers, is this arrogant attitude of like, well, we can't talk about anything like that because science won't take us seriously. I hate to break it to everyone. Science doesn't take you serious now. You're absolutely a joke. And the fighting and the feuding online makes you look even more ridiculous. It's odd that a show like mine becomes popular, especially with a schmuck like me running it. And it's because
I know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's because I don't go into I don't go into normally what we're talking about now. I don't go into because no one cares. And that's where these guys get lost, is they focus so much on, I guarantee I could pull up almost any Bigfoot researcher right now, and 80% of his stuff is going to be about another Bigfoot researcher he doesn't like.
I can name a few that do videos just about us.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the Bigfoot. There's nothing to do with Bigfoot. It's about how they don't like someone else, and it's all drama and nonsense and BS that no one cares about. And it becomes frustrating at times, and that's why it doesn't. I don't really care what people think of me if I want to look into paranormal stuff or stuff that is outside of what everyone quote unquote thinks Bigfoot is, because I'd like to find honest answers, and it may not be the answer I want to hear. It may be the answer that I dread. But that may be the answer at the end, and I'm willing to look into even some of the weird stuff. Like I said, man, one of my mentors, man, was a scientist, and he's saying look into it. Here's a guy that's a scientist saying look into some of the weird paranormal stuff and see if there's something there or not.
You don't care what the detractors think. I mean, you obviously care what people think. There's no courage in not caring what anybody thinks, and there's no sacrifice in it. I mean, why tell anything if you just don't care? So, I mean, I believe that's what you meant, right?
Well, if I start caring what people think, then I'm going to do a show based on what people think. I'm going to present content based on what people think. And that's never, I mean, if you ever listen to my show, that's not what it's about. So it's not that, it's not that I don't care what anyone thinks, but I'm not going to change what I do based on an audience member. I'll give you an example. I've the Manster on the last show, a football show, and I got so much hate, but I don't want to say that I don't care, but I really don't care because
hate I don't care about.
You don't come across Randy White very often, NFL legend, and say, hey, what do you want to do an interview? And he's like, sure. So I'm sure some people were all pissy about it. And I got comments that people were pissy about it. I got emails and Twitter and Facebook and you name it. I got it.
I'm there, man. I'm there. I get a lot of blowback.
But I'm not, I guess what I'm saying when I say I don't care is I'm not going to do my show based on what I think will make the audience happy.
Right.
As arrogant as that sounds, I refuse. The moment I start doing that is the moment I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit doing this.
Well, you have to maintain your niche, and I think everybody needs to find their own. And when you're talking about these researchers and the way they act towards each other, it's a complicated problem. But if we're going to fix complicated problems, we have to learn to fix the simple ones. And I'm not sure we can even get that far right now. But
I think in the Bigfoot world, and since you have you on, I'll give you my opinion. I think in the Bigfoot world, you come across some very, very small men. Some crazy women too as well, but the percentages are very low with women. But with men in general, you come across some very, very small men. And I've come across them, where they'll run their mouths and then I'll run across them. We'll come face to face at a conference and all of a sudden they're shaking my hand, tell me how great I am. And on and on, but I know full well what they wrote online. That's what I mean. If I don't like someone, I'm going to tell you to your face the same thing. In fact, I'll probably say it to your face before I'll say anything online about it. But you don't see that in the Bigfoot world. You come across these very small men who call themselves Bigfoot researchers like it's some sheriff's badge that they're wearing, and they're a joke. It's a joke. And if I was a scientist looking at the Bigfoot world and I saw the Bigfoot researchers, most of them, I'd be like, this is a joke. I'm out. I'm out of this game. There's no way I'm going to spend time. I'm not even a scientist, and I don't even want to spend time with half of these guys. And so I think in order to fix the Bigfoot world, you have to change that mentality of the guy. For whatever reason, I can pull 15 Bigfoot researchers on here right now, and I can show you they're all cut from the same DNA cloth. It's the same personality. It's the same guy. He just looks different. And it's frustrating because it's very unwelcoming to people coming into this, or someone who had an encounter, to walk in and deal with some of these people. And I hate to say that, but it just is. And I didn't mean to go off the other night on your show, but it was starting to.
No, it was great.
It was great for the show. But I'm saying, the moment you were saying, well, this is going on, but I don't think it's Bigfoot related. Well, what is Bigfoot then? And a lot of these Bigfoot researchers, if you sit them down, I thought I was going to get kicked out of a conference one time because I made a fool of a bunch of them. And I just said, they're all sitting around in a circle jerk telling each other how great they are. And I said, hey, guys, how long you been doing this for? And they said, 30, 40 years or whatever they always say. And I said, well, tell me 5 things interesting about Sasquatch that no one else knows. It was like a fart in church, man. I mean, it was like a fart in church. And that's what I mean. I just wish the mentality of people who put themselves forward were better men. Like Dr. Bennernagel, like Bob Gimlin, like a Ron Moorhead. Just guys that are just good guys in general. Guys, whether they saw Bigfoot or didn't see Bigfoot or believed in Bigfoot or didn't believe in Bigfoot, still guys you would look up to. And I wish we had more of that in the Bigfoot world, but we don't. We're stuck with what we got.
Well, you're right. There's this I think it's this brooding egoism, and they want to do it by themselves. And there are things in this subject we should be concerned about that I think are more of a challenge than we can take on alone in some sense. There's too many barriers to our enlightenment for most people to go it alone. The creature itself makes it so difficult for us that more people need to do it together, because it is possible for people to be enlightened. There's plenty of evidence for that.
I think you'd have to put your ego aside to do that. And I started out that way. Don't get me wrong. I started out, thinking I knew everything and that, we were going to solve this in the next couple of years. And the subject has a weird way of humbling you, to where, you don't know everything, and maybe tone it down a little bit, because it just frustrates me, I guess, when I see these Bigfoot researchers and I hear them talk. It's like nails on a chalkboard sometimes, if you ever ask them any sort of question in depth or in detail, you see the house of cards fall really quick. If you ask them something on the surface, they'll answer it. The minute you start drilling down on that question, they don't know anything. And the part that frustrates me is they won't come out and say, hey, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I think people respect that more when you say, I don't know. There's a lot of skeptical questions I get asked from skeptics. And a lot of times I'm like, that's a great question. I don't have a great answer for you, but I can give you an answer. It's not a great answer, but I can give you an answer. And I just wish we could move past the ego. All these guys talk like they've shot one and they have it in the garage and they've been studying it for the last 10 years.
Right.
And it can be farther from the truth.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ridicule in it. And, if that's going to be the remedy for ignorance, you think everyone will be struggling to be educated, if such a state exists in this subject at all. One of the barriers to that is the development of self-conscious. If you're able to follow that, then it's easy to understand why knowledge is in such short supply. Career suicide put aside, people have to free themselves from ridicule and know that what you're looking for is the truth. The truth still exists out there. And I venture to say that ridicule has helped produce a lot of these so-called experts. If they're going to remain in it, and I'm talking about people that are highly confident in their analysis to begin with, who I'm talking about. It's almost like they're forced to defend what they believe or what they know, before anyone can question them, like they're heading it off at the pass. Surely they'll believe me if I sound like I've lived among, the Sasquatch people, and then of course you question anything that they say, and it becomes this moment of introspection where they're beating on their chest and professing their knowledge. It makes you not want to ask another damn question. It makes me not want to ask them anymore. That's the first thing I look for when I'm vetting these people, because I'm not going to travel 1,000 miles to do a show on somebody that's making all these absolute claims. I can't do it. Just tell me your story. What happened to you? Let everyone else decide whether it's credible or not. You know, the credibility lies in the story itself, not what happened to you. It lies in you, letting people know who you are. That's what we try to do. We try to tell people who they are so they can trust this person and trust that what they're saying actually happened to them. Because all this other stuff that unfortunately pops up, that just, you got the hoaxers, and for whatever reason, people do that. I don't know. And
yeah, I hear you.
But, you know, again, if that behavior is going to be, it has to be fed to continue happening. So there's the blind follower, you know, people accept way too much without question, Wes. You know, I call them the willfully ignorant, you know, and then the expert can still be frequently wrong, but never in doubt.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny too. You have the other side of the coin too. And I know people are going to think I'm bashing on them. Have you ever seen, gosh, what's the name of it? My Journey with Monsters with Stacey Brown and C. Wayne Wilson. I think it's on Amazon.
No.
Anyway, C. Wayne Wilson is kind of this goofy character.
I know who he is.
Yeah. And I actually really like C. Wayne Wilson. If you ever get to meet him outside of Bigfoot and you ever talk to him, he's actually a very sweet guy. He's actually
I believe that, and I think I don't think he's disingenuous. I think he believes every single thing he's saying.
No, and for the audience, if you get a chance, go check it out. My Journey with Monsters, with Stacey Brown and C. Wayne Wilson, and I break C. Wayne Wilson's balls all the time online. I never try to be mean to him though. I'm always trying to do it in the spirit of humor, and you know, I never want him to walk away and go, wow, Wes is kind of a dick. I mean, that's really not my intentions with him. But even on that side of the coin, you see these people to where, you know, he's filming, in my opinion, and I'm sure he's listening, but in my opinion, and I've told them this face to face or whatever, so I don't mind saying it. I think he films bushes and shadows. And, but it's so, when I saw the video or the documentary they put together, I was busting up because I thought it was hilarious. And when C. Wayne Wilson first came out in the Bigfoot world, I was like, this guy's the greatest troll ever to, but you know, you have it on that side too, where you have these people on the woo to where they'll make all these weird claims and there's nothing, when you start looking at what they got, there's nothing there. And I don't want to come across like I'm being mean again to see Wayne Wilson. I actually really like Wayne Wilson a lot.
Yeah, he's genuine.
He's very nice. He's a very, very, very nice guy. A little goofy, and I think he sees shadows and bushes, but I've already told him that, so I can say it on the air. With regard to your documentary, and again, you've put together some really good stuff. I think the last one I saw was Woodburger Farms. I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, Rick Wells.
Rick Wells.
Yeah, that was our 10th. That was our 10th one. We put one out after that.
It was really good. It was really good, man. It was shot really well. And even when I was watching on YouTube, I was like, wow, this is free on YouTube. But out of all of the people that you filmed, is there one that stands out to you the most?
Yeah, I think Res Squatching, episode 9, we went and did the Omaha Reservation in Nebraska. That one really changed my perception of what's going on, I think, quite a bit. You know, not that I was turned away so much from the woo, I just hadn't seen any good evidence for it. Hadn't experienced it myself, haven't seen anything really convincing, you know, that there's this cloaking and portals and all this other stuff going on. So I just kind of took the naturalistic aspect of Sasquatch as far as I could, till I just couldn't take it that way anymore. And that happened to me on that episode. You know, they had some corroborating accounts of these creatures being right in front of them and being able to see like the predator thing, like the shimmer. And these are credible people. You know, if you watch it, and while we were there, I captured an EVP. It sounds like an EVP to me. It's a Native American voice, and it's whatever it's saying, I don't know, but they were there trying to put together a hair trap with the backwards tape and grease. And this voice comes out, and it's not anybody around us, and it's a Native American voice. It sounds like it's in a coffee can from a distance, but none of us heard it at the time. But my microphone, that Rode NG1, picked it up, and I didn't catch it until I was editing, and I had to stop. It took me like 4 hours just to figure out how I was going to move forward editing that film. And I ended up making it a part of the story and let everybody hear it for themselves. It's pretty incredible. To me, it is.
What did it say?
Anyway, the exact words are Navagata Gabi Sheo Iho. Now, in Omaha, Sheo means to shed hair. Gata is lanolin or grease. And what were we doing? Making a hair trap. The old Scott Carpenter hair trap with tape and grease. So that was what the rest, Barry, he's the only one that could speak Native American. That's what he said. He said, that's what I can pick up out of it. The rest of it he couldn't quite make out. Maybe it was some older dialect. I don't know, but who was saying it? That was the thing.
One question I want to ask you, I know, I think when I originally asked you what you thought Sasquatch was, you said they were a type of people. And I wanted to know if your opinion has changed over all the people you've talked to. I mean, you talked to probably just as many people as I talked to.
Probably not.
Well, I'm just curious, has your opinion changed as far as...
Not really. I still think just because of all the places we've gone and the corollary to humans is what I look at. You know, we've done 11 shows, 12 shows now in 9 different states. And it's always different. You know, all the immutable characteristics are the same, you know, big, hairy, ugly, scary. But, you know, the variances, you know, to me, it's like this. There's what we know and there's what we believe. You know, we can't know everything. So we form beliefs to fill in those gaps. But there's such a great variance in gaps. So there's a great variance in beliefs. Now, everyone experiences something different. You know, like I said, there's a lot of similarities, like the immutable characteristics, big, hairy, ugly, whatever. But there's so much variance in that, and I think it clouds our ability to put anything definitive together. That's why I think it's like humans. You can't say, even if you've researched a Sasquatch in one spot for 20 years and you've studied their behavior or whatever, can you put that behavior on all of them? I don't think so. That's not what we've experienced, is that they're different. So maybe some have different supernatural abilities that some don't have. They know that's just a theory. Could be. But what I've noticed is they're different. They're as different from each other, I believe, as people are different from one another. Just like because we're self-aware. We're sentient, self-aware beings. Our life experience forms our day-to-day life. I don't think it's any different for them. I think if they have a bad experience with people, they're going to be angry towards people. I think if they have a good experience with people, then those particular ones are going to have a loving relationship with them. That's just how I see it.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, there's a lot of encounters. I had one on Friday night with the members only show where Frank had run across, he was out fishing with his brother, and as they were coming in, this thing just was going berserk and acted like it wanted to kill them. These guys hadn't done anything. They were sitting out in the middle of the lake, and this thing's just screaming at them. So I would tend to agree with you. Tell me about your expedition coming up in Florida for the audience listening, and if people want to donate, how would they donate?
Yeah, we have PayPal. That's Bigfoot Odyssey. You can find the links in any one of our episodes. And we have a GoFundMe that we started. This is something that I thought about for years. You know, I didn't really want to go out and look for Bigfoot. I didn't want to do it. Had too many reservations about it, which is why we do what we do. But I don't know, something happened. And what I'd been thinking about for years, what I thought it would take to do this, the type of sacrifice it was going to take to actually catch them on film, would have to be, what I was planning would have to be in the right area. I don't think this will work, what we're planning, in an area like the mountains or an open space where they can stay away from you. So we picked this place in Florida because it's close quarter, and they're in there. They're just thick in there. And we've put together a team. It's 13 people. There's 8 guys, and I vetted 44 people in the first week. I picked the first 8 out of them. So I was looking for a particular type of person, not necessarily a Bigfoot researcher, but I wanted life professionals and people that carried some weight and some credibility. That's why I didn't want a bunch of young guys. I wanted people that had lived a little bit and, like I said, had some life experience, and that were willing to make the kind of sacrifice I think it's going to take to catch some decent evidence, good enough, something more convincing than what we have now. I mean, Patterson Gimlin, what do we really have after that? So maybe it's the Freeman footage and a few other things. But this is what I want to try. We've got several $100,000 worth of equipment, 3rd generation FLIR on the ground, 3rd generation night vision 1080p that records on the ground, and thermal drone 1080p. And this is all very expensive stuff. And, if people want to be a part of it and donate, we appreciate everything we get. We've already gotten over $7,000. If we don't get another dime, I'm going to be putting about 20 grand of my own money into this. So, but that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make but the way we're going to do it, no one's ever done this way. We're going to be filming for 1 week straight with 12 cameras nonstop. 6 of those 12 cameras are going to be running at any given moment throughout the whole thing. And we got 2 teams, 4-man teams with the cameraman. Everybody's going to have cameras. They're going to have action cameras on their body. There'll be a cameraman there filming them do this. I'm going to be one of those cameramen. Cam Buckner from Dixie Cryptid is going to be the other cameraman for the other team. And the way it's going to be presented and shot, there are going to be some setup shots, because we have to tell the story. It's a story of these guys going down there for 168 hours straight, trying to catch good evidence of Sasquatch and getting them on thermal. Everybody's connected by radio. I've already purchased most of this stuff, the radios and the harnesses and the body cams. And while they're out there, find them on the thermal and going in after them. Not just watching them or hearing them scream and run the other way. These guys are going to make the hard sacrifice. They're going to go in after them. And the place we're going, there's not a lot of place for them to get away from us. So we're going to be counting on them having to get close to us to watch us have some strategies that we have set up for catching them on the thermal, guiding these guys into where they are, and setting up to where people are in position to film them as they I just want to get them moving. We can catch them peeking their face out, at us all day long. It's catching them moving. And that's what I want to do. But more than anything, I want to tell the story. Because what people are going to see is multiple screen action. You're going to have 2-way, 3-way, and 4-way screen where you see drone footage all in real time, or all at the same time. Drone footage in one corner, and then the guys on the ground with the action cams on the body. Whoever's got the most action will be in one corner, the thermal on the ground in the other corner, and the FLIR in the other corner, or however, whatever the best angles are going to produce is what I'll put on there. And that's what a lot of the action is that people are going to see for a lot of the action. And it's it's a very ambitious venture, but I got a lot of researchers together. I got a lot of the community behind us, and anybody that wants to be a part of it and donate, anybody that does donate, we're gonna thank you personally in the film. It's gonna be a 7-part docuseries. Each day will be a part. It's called 168 Hours, A Bigfoot Odyssey. There'll be an hour counts going on in the corner, and each part will be day 1, day 2, but most of it, half of it will be the story of these guys, the struggles, the failures and the successes, and getting people emotionally invested in what's going on here, and getting to know these guys, that they're not out there trying to pull the wool over someone else's eyes, that these are stand-up guys, and there's a lot of them. There's 8 of them, and then we've got people that are doing oversight and logistics for us. We've got medics, We've got someone directing the effort. I'm going to be directing the film part, but we've got, a well-known researcher from South Florida directing the whole ground game. So it's an epic
ambitious.
and a very, very ambitious venture, but we're going to do it. There's no turning back now. We're doing this.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck down there, when you go to do that. Does it concern you that you might become the next Bob Gimlin? You might become the next Todd Standing? You might become the next, who was the guy from the Blue Mountains?
Paul Freeman.
Paul Freeman. Anytime anyone seems to get any sort of evidence on video, it's always it seems like half the crowd goes with that person. The other half of the crowd says, "Oh, he's a hoaxer." His wife is a makeup artist, or well, Bob Gimlin wasn't involved in it, but Roger Patterson was the hoaxer, or in Paul Freeman's case, it was like, well, he's just a hoaxer. I'm not so sure you could pass everyone off as a hoaxer the way everyone does. But does that concern you? Let's say you do get something great on video. Are you prepared for, because going back to what I was saying about Bigfoot researchers, they love to eat their own. You come back with great footage, and I'm sure you'll be on the chopping block. Everyone will say, oh, Kerry's a master CGI artist, and he knows CGI, and he's been doing video forever. I can already hear the arguments coming up. Does that concern you at all?
Well, we are going to attach all the metadata for people to see, exactly how the film was put together. So they'll know there's no CGI in it. But that being said, Wes, nobody ever did anything great sitting on the couch. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything great, but if it ends up being that way, then I'll just have to take what comes with it. Someone has to do this. And I think it was just the right timing. We had the means to get the word out and the means to actually get it, to do it. Whether we catch anything or not remains to be seen. But we had the means to do it, and I couldn't at that point. I just said, you know what, I can't not do it. I have to do this. I've had it in my head for this many years, this plan, how it should be done, waiting for someone else to do it, and no one has. So we're doing it, and however it turns out is how it turns out. I'm willing to accept those consequences, but it's a one-time deal for me. I won't do it again. I'm going to give it my shot and say, and I will be able to rest knowing that I gave it everything I had, and I'll just go back to making documentaries about people and their experiences.
No, I respect that. I respect that a lot. And I think you're right. Nothing ever happens if you don't show up. You got to show up for something to happen. And I wish you guys best of luck on it. I can't wait to, I definitely can't wait to see it. And I think that you do some really cool stuff on your Bigfoot Odyssey channel. I highly recommend the audience go subscribe to Kerry. Go to YouTube, type in Bigfoot Odyssey. I'll throw a link underneath this episode. And yeah, man, I wish you the best. I really do. I mean that wholeheartedly. I wish you the best down there. I hope you guys do come back. What do you think it'll take to prove Bigfoot? Do you think we can do it through video?
I don't think we're going to prove anything. All I really want to do is get something more convincing. In my mind, we need more people behind us. The subject needs more people behind it. And if we can get something that convinces more people that, hey, wow, these things actually are out there. I mean, look at this. Then to me, it'll be a success. And we've actually done that with a few people with our docuseries that we shoot now. So that's all I want to do. I just want to get something more convincing. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I hope it does. I got a good feeling about it. The guys have a good feeling about it too.
Yeah. Well, I respect your ambition, man. And I know you can speak to it fully. When you have an encounter, it definitely changes your life. It definitely changes your life. And a lot of things you do in your life are a lot different after an encounter. And Kerry Arnold, Bigfoot Odyssey. Kerry, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Wes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Until next time, everyone.
complicating danger I like. Save me from myself, let me drown in my black lake. Let me float away. Save me from myself, let me drown in my black lake. Beauty is a black lake, let me sail away. Beauty is a black lake, let me sail away. Darkness approaching, deep water keeps flowing. It inhales me in the stormy tide. Endless emotion, a dawn thought, a notion, an epiphany, bring the shore to life. Save me from myself, let me drown